Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for zooming in to our webinar today. This is the University of the Pacific, McGeorge School of Law. We're hosting this webinar on systems change. I'm Marcie Paolinelli. I'm the Director of the Public Policy Programs at McGeorge. And that in those programs, we offer the Master of Public Administration degree, the Master of Public Policy degree, and we also host the Transformational Change Partnership. That's the topic of what we're here to talk about today. And let me go over the agenda very quickly here on the next slide. So in just a second, we're going to introduce our participants, and then I'm going to interview them about the Transformational Change Partnership. And then I'm going to give a brief overview of our master's degree programs and what makes us distinctive. And then we'll have time for questions and answers, either about the Transformational Change Partnership or about our public policy programs. At any time, you can put questions into the chat box or the Q&A as well, and we'll take those questions at the end. So off we go. Let's start with introductions. As I stated, I'm Marcie Paolinelli. I'm the director of our public policy programs, and I teach management and organizational behavior classes for our programs. Here with us today is Jason Willis. He's not only a professor of public policy with us, he also directs our Transformational Change Partnership. And I was wondering, Jason, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what makes you excellent in this role?
Sure thing. Good afternoon, everybody. As Marcie said, Jason Willis. I've been at McGeorge and at the University of the Pacific for a little over 2 years, and I kind of come to this work at the university via school systems and healthcare systems. I spent about 10 years as a chief financial officer in some pretty large urban school systems in California, places like Oakland, Stockton, and San Jose. I then went on to work for a national nonprofit known as West Ed, based out of San Francisco. They do work both in the education, health, and human development spaces, where I led a team of about 25 people engaging with states and other school districts and healthcare partners, aiming to advance equitable outcomes for the children and families that they served. I've also taught, in addition to, in a variety of different places, and here at McGeorge, in addition to helping to steer the Transformational Change Partnership, I also teach the systemic change and building societal capacity classes in the public policy program.
Great. We also have Jasmin Asher with us. She's the assistant program manager working with Jason Willis. She's also a current student in our Master of Public Policy program. Tell us a little bit about you, Jasmin.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm happy to talk about this with you all. I have been with the university just under 2 years. So I joined just after Jason when I was a semester into the Masters of Public Policy program. I finished undergrad with this big goal of going to law school. But after completing the application and the LSAT twice, I decided that it was not something that suited my fancy. And discovered McGeorge and their deep alumni network and connection to the Capitol, and felt this was a place for me. And I currently work with Jason and have been able to connect a lot of the learnings that the master's program has to the things that we hold strongly in the Transformational Change Partnership. So that is a little bit about me.
That's great. So I'm anxious to interview both of you. We're into the afternoon, this afternoon. So I'm going to start off with the first question is for Jason. And could you tell us what is the Transformational Change Partnership? And I think we'll need the next slide for this.
Yeah, thanks, Marcie, for that. I think one of the important things before I dive into explaining a little bit of the detail about the Transformational Change Partnership is really how this program complements and in some ways enhances both the public policy programs and McGeorge overall. In a lot of ways, a public a master's of public policy or a master's of public administration. That's one of the degrees that I hold. Really prepares you to step into a variety of different professions that are associated with some delivery of a public benefit. That can be in government. It could also be in the nonprofit space. It could be in foundations, philanthropy. But all that said, the preparation that McGeorge does for Masters of Public Policy and Public Administration is preparing you to step into those roles and not only be able to perform those roles, but also to be a change leader. And when I say that intentionally, we expect our students, similar to our faculty like Marcie and others, that have done groundbreaking work in both California's public policy and public administration arenas, but also in other parts of the country and even the world. So in that way, the Transformational Change Partnership is really kind of enveloping that spirit of helping prepare, in this case, active sitting professionals that are in county offices, from behavioral health to education to housing to criminal justice, and really trying to build their capacity with a set of skills that complements a lot of the way that public policy expresses its desire to see change, which is through technical requirements. So in that way, the learning model is really associated with kind of four components. Most often, when we try to prepare adults, either young or older adults, to build their capacity, we really focus on knowledge. Do they know something? Do they understand what that thing is? But we very rarely will then associate it with, their desired abilities. Like, how do they demonstrate that they can actually apply the knowledge that they've learned? And furthermore, we kind of mix together that with experiences that we offer to them through this fellowship program, and really try to tap into the energy that comes along with emotion. One thing that we find a lot is that these careers are hard, but they are extraordinarily rewarding for the people that we serve. And so bringing together these four components into a fellowship model that really addresses the specific needs of that county agency and the population that they're trying to serve. Natalie, let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that you might be asking yourself is like, well, Jason said fellowship. What does that actually mean? What does it look like? And the way that we articulate and break down that fellowship is over the course of 9 months. So teams of county staff, nonprofits, community leaders are working together in a team on a very explicit goal. And over the course of that 9 months, we take them through what we call progressions. And these progressions help to both identify skills, but also have accountability around very clear goals that we want them to accomplish. And through those progressions, they're essentially acquiring different sets of skills. So I'll give two very explicit examples of this, one more technical in nature and one more geared towards community engagement. So in one of our counties that we've worked with, there was a subset of activities that were happening around how county behavioral health was engaging the community, how they were trying to understand the needs of their clients. And what was so transformational about this experience is that the director for that lead set of activities, his mindset, you could just see evolve in a way that he was coming around and realizing differences in the ways that he could interact with the community, boundaries that he thought were there that were no longer there, that really enhanced his ability to understand more deeply the needs of those in the community as he was reshaping services inside of county behavioral health. In another instance, we were working with a county that was really trying to think about ways in which they were going to organize themselves from an administrative and an efficiency standpoint to collect information that would help with billing for services to various other state and federal agencies and health insurance companies to then get revenue that allowed them to continue to provide those services. And through programs that we teach about, such as if you've ever heard of Lean or Six Sigma, those like efficiency type of programming that happens within these organizations, this county and a subset of that team was able to leverage that as a way to restructure the way that they were bringing teams of people together to discuss certain items and how that billing was occurring in a most efficient way possible. So those are just a few of the examples of the way that these teams, these active practitioners, are using the Transformational Change Partnership model as a way to really advance the goals, the priorities, and the needs that they see within their very specific communities. Natalie, let's go to the next slide. So one of the important things that we think about from a program design perspective is really grounded in a set of fundamentals. And in particular, we think about this both in terms of the sessions and progressions, but also the improvement project that I was beginning to describe. I talked a bit about the team-based environment, the comprehensive content. And I think one of the things that really comes up, particularly around the sessions and progressions, is that we are able to teach these practitioners about how to understand, if not expose, the landscape, the kind of water that they're swimming in. If any of you have ever read any of Peter Senge's work around waters of systems change, you'll kind of understand that analogy. And then once they understand that landscape, practicing one of the root of the solution sets to a root cause that they've identified to help them build that confidence. And that's really tied to this notion of the improvement project, which is the thing that allows them to actually practice together. And one of the skills that we advance through the partnership that is something we very rarely see right now in the field is the set of skills, ability, emotional intelligence that leaders need to have in order to navigate and coordinate with peers in other agencies, right? So think about this as an example from the perspective of the criminal justice system. In California, there's been a huge push from Sacramento and from policymakers over the last 3 to 5 years to reform the way that California thinks about the criminal justice system, how it treats those that are in the process of potentially being incarcerated, those that are incarcerated. And in particular, they are putting a huge emphasis on what are the behavioral health supports that these individuals, either youth or adults, need to have before, during, and after going through the criminal justice system. And so the skill of working with peers across agencies really kind of comes to the fore here, because if you're trying to implement a different set of services, one of the things that comes up is that the agencies within the criminal justice system think the sheriff's office, think the district attorney, think the court system, are really having to work with another agency that they haven't had a lot of interaction with, county behavioral health, in order to implement these services. And so through the improvement project process, we really help to build that skill and capacity for the individuals on these teams to practice what it is like to work with peers in a really productive way to build these new systems. So all that said, you may be saying, well, Jason, what does this have anything to do with the public policy programs? And I would tell you that it has just about everything to do with public policy programs. Because when you look at the curriculum that McGeorge and the MPA, MPP programs offer, each one of those classes are both tapping into what I would describe as some of the traditional content that public administration and public policy still uses today to advance public benefits to, if it's in California, to Californians, et cetera. But it also begins to introduce new content like the systemic change class, like the building societal capacity class, that are using these different tools as mechanisms to really enhance the traditional ways in which we want to advance public policy, and frankly, how resources are implemented on the ground to help communities. And so one of the very clear opportunities among others that we have in the Transformational Change Partnership is to host students that are coming into their capstone. This is one of the last classes that you would take as a master's student, in which we would place you with one of these county teams. And under the kind of guidance of either Marcie, myself, or another faculty as a mentor, you would be working with this county team to essentially execute on a part of their project. that could be anything from financial analysis to data analysis to constructing a new process, using and applying a lot of the tools that I was mentioning earlier. One of the other kind of derivative benefits, there are kind of two strands to this that I'll offer that come about as a result of the partnership's close relationship with the MPA and MPP programs is, case in point, and I'll kind of turn this over to her next with Jasmin. She's now staff with us at the Transformational Change Partnership. And so we continue to grow as a benefit to counties and to public, government in California. And so new positions may be coming available for ourselves or for other partners that create opportunities for students to, transition really seamlessly from their program into a full paying position doing this type of work. The other thing that I'll mention too is that the TCP also hosts events on the campus with other partners, one of which I'd actually invite any and all of you to come to in September. We will be hosting the Office of Youth and Criminal Justice Reform, OICR, that's housed under the Department of Social Services. And they are releasing a report that is really focused on helping to reframe the narrative around youth that have been incarcerated. And we are hosting an on-campus event, almost a full day, in order to, highlight those changes and bring about some attention from policymakers and from other individuals that really want to push for these changes. So those are just a couple of ways, both some explanation around the partnership, but also a couple of ways in which we've been really closely working with the MPA and MPP programs to great enhancement on both sides. So I think with that, Marcie, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you. Well, we're really fortunate to have Jasmin here with us today because she's not only affiliated with the TCP, but she's a current student as well. And so I think the folks that have tuned in today would like to know, how does the TCP connect to the master's program? And what is that like from your experience as a current student?
Yeah, I'd love to touch on this because this is something that I see as a huge benefit for the master's program and to the TCP, is that I get to experience and learn at the same time. As Jason just stated, a core part of the TCP is the learn by doing model. And that's practiced not only with the counties that we work with, but also with partners and employees such as myself. And so one of the as Jason talked about, the capstone is really focused on looking at implementation challenges. And one of the big things that the TCP is, we really help teams look at the challenges that they face, the gaps that are in the services they provide, and then how to move forward from those gaps. And so you have to identify the opportunities that are there, the capacities, the limits, and all of those things. And these are all things that I actually learned in the capstone. So seeing it in real life, seeing counties dive into the challenges that they have, and then also hearing about why it's important in the capstone was really eye-opening for me. And it's helped the learning stick even more than they already were. And again, like, the credit to Jason here, because he's giving me the opportunity to do so much in this position. As an analyst or even as a public administrator, like he said, you have to know so many different things, and some of the major skills that are essential for those roles, I've been able to practice them in real time and provide them to stakeholders and funders to get feedback. So it's definitely like a real life experience for me, and everything is still just as, it's actually for me a step up, because there's actually more on the line. The whole program is dependent on whether I can communicate clearly. So it provides us a little extra motivation for me to practice it correctly, to learn the things that I've learned in the capstone, and the enhancing societal capacity class, the systemic change class, to real life.
Oh, thank you, Jasmin. I think in my introductions, or in Jason's introduction, he made it known that he's a professor in our program and teaches several classes. So I think the folks here would be interested in knowing more about your teaching philosophy and how you incorporate the skills and tools of systemic change and the TCP into your teaching and learning.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, Marcie. And I think that one of the kind of philosophies that I always adapt, whether it's working with clients, helping to run the Transformational Change Partnership, or doing work directly with students in classes, is that there is always something that can get better. I think that's from my perspective an important life lesson, that if you really enjoy the work you're doing, you're constantly learning. It's like, the way I think about it is, somebody's paying you to learn, right? And in that way, I always think about ways in which, when I'm teaching and the content that I'm bringing to the class, as being in pencil, right? It's something you can erase and make better. In some ways, I think that the students and their experiences that they bring to the class is teaching me just as much as I'm able to offer to them through readings or stories or the assignments. So in that way, I really see it as a two-way street. Specific to some of the content, Marcie, that you were asking about, I'll really kind of start with the systemic change class, which is what I would call some of the building blocks of how we think about this new era of skills and skill sets, that in particular is emphasizing things that we know government, either California, local, other state, federal, et cetera, really need in an ability to make better use of the funding that they are getting access to. And some of those examples include one of the topics that I already brought up around community engagement, right? Like when we say that term, what do we actually mean? And it turns out that there's actually a lot of variation underneath of that umbrella term, in particular in the ways that you structure your engagement with the community, that can be as simple as what we often see with government agencies, which is like a survey, or maybe they'll do a focus group or two. And that level of engagement can evolve and grow all the way to a place that in which they call co-production, which is literally the process of sharing power with communities that the public system has, and is inherent in the powers that are vested with them through both money and policy. And that co-production is not applicable everywhere in every circumstance, but understanding the variance and understanding which one of those you would want to access in the situation in which you're in working with a community or advancing a public service, is one of the skills that we really teach around systemic change. Another example, which is a lot more, I would say, kind of analytical, is really looking at way in which systems operate. So if you think about, for example, the way that you would write up a recipe, for cooking in the kitchen, in systems change work, we actually now have ways in which to define and map visually the way that systems operate, not only within a single organization, but also the relationships between those organizations. Remember, I was talking earlier about how peers and other organizations would work together with one another. In this class, we teach the structures, the analytics of how to understand and identify what those systems look like, what their dependencies are, where their, at times, what I would say, their kind of inputs are, or their outputs, right? And where the constraints will come up as a part of those systems. And so those are some of the basic theoretical bases that we kind of add into these classes, that through the assignments are then applied. So one of the things that I ask all the students in my systemic change class to do is to come in together in small groups of 2 to 3 individuals, and they will pick both a subject and an object of their public policy engagement, and apply a lot of the learning that I'm teaching through the course itself. And at the very end of the course, we basically have a panel of existing actors in California government or other public policy circumstances that will listen to and then offer some scores, but most often some critical feedback about how to improve the solution sets that the groups are putting together. So, Marcie, it has both some of the theoretical basis, which I think is really important for anybody to understand when they're walking into a real life situation. But then here we are again with the ability to practice things that are happening in real time, that allow students to really kind of absorb that new learning.
That's great. So we're going to have a bit of time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. So if you do have questions, please type them into the Q&A box down on the lower bar there, and we will answer those in just a few minutes. We're going to segue a little bit into explanation of our master's programs right now. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the other important person on this webinar, and that's Natalie Coconubo-Lizer. She is the Assistant Director of our Public Policy Programs. And if you want to know more about us, or if you intend to apply to our programs, she will be very helpful in answering all your questions and helping move your application along. And she's driving the slides here too. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. What I'd like to do is just spend just a couple of minutes telling you a little bit about McGeorge and our programs. And if you don't know that much about us, we are just celebrating, or just finished celebrating, our 100th anniversary. We're well known here in the Sacramento region as the professional law school. We're affiliated with the University of the Pacific, UOP for short. UOP is a 3-campus university. The mothership is in Stockton. We have the dental school in San Francisco, and the law school and other professional degrees are offered here on our Sacramento campus. The UOP is also a longtime well-known school as well. One thing distinctive about our programs is McGeorge was very forward-thinking, and we were the first law school to incorporate and integrate the MPA and MPP professional degrees within the law school. And I'll explain why that's important in just a minute. We're really close to the state capitol, which gives us a lot of opportunities to bring in subject matter experts, guest speakers, and provide internship opportunities back to the legislative and executive branch. So there's quite a bit of opportunity that we offer just by virtue of who we are and where we're located. Next slide, please. That's a picture of me. I'm teaching, I think, our foundations of public administration. The reason that picture is up there is just to show you that we have a very experienced faculty. All of us have decades of experience making and doing the very stuff that we're teaching you to do. So for me, I'm a management consultant by training. I had 30 years. I started with Price Waterhouse, and I've done consulting projects in nearly every functional area of state government. So I bring a lot of that experience into the classroom with war stories and how to get things done in the public sector. You'll see that we focus on 4 critical competencies within our program. And here's what makes this distinctive. Because we're in a law school, we're going to have you take 2 law classes. One reason for that is law is the basis for everything we do in the public sector. So you need to have that foundation to know how to interpret laws, how to analyze laws, and how even to write laws. And then the other law class is called Statutes and Regulations. So all of our students take those 2 law classes as core in their programs. You'll also learn about leading and managing organizations, how to make and implement public policy, and then do a deep dive on how to analyze and present data for decision makers to make informed decisions. Next slide. So Natalie and I, we talk to all prospective applicants, and the #1 question we get is, what's the difference between an MPP and an MPA? And we try to put it in a diagram. And if you think about the public policy process, you start with trying to solve a problem that needs public action, and you analyze the extent of that problem. You come up with some alternatives, do some analysis on pros and cons of each alternative, come up with some recommendations, and then those recommendations need to be implemented. And that implementation can be new laws or regulations. It could be new programs, be changes to existing programs. It can be a whole host of things. But there is a spectrum of things you have to do to solve public problems. The MPP focuses on the analysis and evaluation and development of public policies. The MPP students get exposure to implementation, but there's a heavy dose of analysis and quantitative analysis and critical analysis on advanced public policy making. The MPA students get exposure to that analysis and evaluation, but they get more of experience on the management and implementation of public policies. And then there's a common core curriculum, and of course, those 2 law classes that I was talking about. But it would be great if you're still confused, if you could meet with either Natalie or with me, and we can walk you through what the 2 degrees are in more in depth, what concentrations we offer, and really have a good conversation about which degree is best for you and your career goals. Next slide. We have flexibility in our program in that our night classes are offered online. And when we say online, we mean synchronously, just like we are interacting now, real time. And then we have in-person classes on selected Saturdays. We structured our curriculum so that all students are on campus on the same Saturdays. You might have a morning class or you might have an afternoon class, but everybody is sharing time at lunch for our guest speaker series and to build community within our students. We have concentration areas that Natalie and I can talk to you more about in depth when we meet with you in terms of water and environmental policy, lobbying and public policy advocacy, nonprofit and social capacity management, and policy analysis. So that's a little bit about our program. I think it's now time for Q&A. Is that right, Natalie? Is that what the next slide is? Yes. So it's now time for our questions and answers, and either use the Q&A or the chat box for questions for Jason, Jasmin, or me. We are happy to answer anything that comes to mind. Any other thoughts, Jason or Jasmin, while people are typing their questions in? Anything you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I know we responded to the question that was asked by James, but just to say that, the scope and scale of the issues that are addressed through the public policy program are really broad. So we have faculty that represent, international work, national or state-by-state work, as well as California-based work. And obviously, being so close to the Capitol, we're within a mile, there are a tremendous amount of opportunities to get involved in active policy discussions, policy debates that are happening here in California, which is, not a shrinking violet by any stretch. California is the 4th largest economy in the world, right behind Germany. We just passed Japan. So dealing with public policy issues in California is less like dealing with them as, one of the 50 states in the union, and more often equivalent to dealing with it as a separate nation state. But that aside, I think a lot of layering in terms of the faculty's experience to address international, federal, or state issues in the program.
Great. You might be wondering how you can get in touch with either Natalie or me. And Natalie's going to put her information into the chat box here in just a moment. So you'll have that information as well. So for the attendees, we're happy to answer any questions. We already had one from James. Thank you, James. I would like to mention that our fall semester starts in August, and we're still accepting applications. The fall semester starts the week of August 18th, so there's still time to get your application in and be all ready to go in the fall. There's Natalie's email and my email are there in the chat box. Just copy those over to get in touch with us. Okay. I'll give you just another minute or so to put in a question. I don't know if you said this, Jason, but in addition to employing a couple of our students in full-time jobs and doing the capstone project, you also oversee students that are doing individual research projects as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's absolutely right. And so as a part of, gaining credit through the program, you can link up with a faculty member, and I'm doing that with one of the students this fall, in which we're looking at some of the evidence and science behind some of the skills that I was talking about earlier with the Transformational Change Partnership. And it's a great opportunity to kind of put to practice, I think, a lot of the policy analysis and the kind of evidence gathering skills, tools that you would learn in class in a real world environment. There's a couple of other research projects that I'll be, kicking off in the next month or two that will also have opportunities for students to jump in to look at issues in public policy and administration. As one of the things that I'm looking at, which, is typically pretty boring to others, but I find it really fascinating, is looking at the role that compliance and compliance with rules have in shaping the behavior of public administrators, and specifically when and what events trigger individuals to look at those rules and the compliance with them as administrative burden, right? Like we hear this often, out in the ether, especially now with the current federal administration of talking about, waste, and there's like waste of resources and there's too much burden, there's too much paperwork. But there's not a lot of science around this. No, there's no way to measure, what is good, what is necessary, because rules exist for a reason. They help to protect classes of individuals. They help to ensure parity across all kinds of different communities. But we don't understand much about, what that means in practice, or what kind of circumstance our administrators are working with in those contexts. So in any case, that's just another example of a research project that we'll be lifting off with, in the fall. So yeah, ongoing opportunities there, Marcie.
That's great. The other thing I neglected to mention about Natalie is Natalie's a recent graduate from our MPA program, and Jasmin is almost going to graduate in another semester from our MPP program. So they'd be excellent resources as well, and be glad to talk to you to tell you more about what the student experience is like if you're interested in joining us. So I don't see any, unless I'm missing, I don't see any open questions. Do you, Natalie? No? Okay. Well, I would like to thank you all for joining us. A special thank you to Jason and Jasmin for spending the last hour with us and getting us informed on systemic change and the Transformational Change Partnership. And all of us would like to get to know you and meet you in person if that's possible. So hope to see you again in the future. With that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.